So object construction, during object construction in most programming languages, there is a special method that is involved, which is called constructor. The idea is this method actually creates the object. Well, in essence, what it does is it initializes, generally speaking, it initializes some values during object construction. It's very useful in some situations. So but it's a little bit different from other methods, because আমরা জানি যে একটা usual method there is a return type, right? If there is no return type in C# we call it void return type, right? But in constructor we don't literally define a return type. Constructors don't return anything, not even void. So that's something we need to need to keep in mind. So yeah, another important part, another important discussion in regards to constructor is there is always a constructor that is involved, even if we don't define it, which means the class definition I have shown previously. So let's go to that. So consider the class transformer here. We don't have anything else other than the keyword and the name, but if we really write this code and run it, actually C# compiler will create a constructor for us. It just does the heavy lifting for us. We don't have to do it. So what it does is it gives us what is called default parameterless constructor. So to see that আমরা bank classটাকে আমরা check করতে পারি. So এখানে after public we have the same bank, we have the bank name and then the parenthesis, pair of parentheses. So constructor syntaxটা হচ্ছে it doesn't have a return type, number one. Number two is the name of the method is same as the type name. So এখানে type nameটা হচ্ছে bank, so the constructor type constructor name is also bank. For transformer, if the class is class name is transformer, so the object so the constructor's name is also transformer. So these are the basic building blocks, but the one thing is important here is also the public keyword. We know we're using public, we have seen that it in essence exposes that member. So when we say public bank in this example, we are saying this constructor is publicly available. Actually there are a lot of discussions we can do around hiding constructor, private constructor, and public, private, and protected constructor, but that we will not do that because that's a little bit advanced. For now we will define only public constructors. So that's number one. That's number two, I think. And then another point is the parameterless portion. So what happens is during object creation আমাদের কখনো কখনো data প্রয়োজন হয়. So for a classic example of this is circle. So mathematically speaking, a circle must have a radius. Radius with value 0, it's not a valid radius. So meaning আমরা conceptually চিন্তা করতে পারি যে radius যখন আমরা ক্রিয়েট করব আমাদের we need a non-zero radius value, right? So that means আমাদের যদি একটা ক্লাস থাকে radius এবং তার যদি একটা কনস্ট্রাক্টর থাকে radius, which আমরা যদি define না করি C# will do it automatically, we can leverage this construction mechanism to have a valid value for radius, because conceptually আমরা এভাবে চিন্তা করতে পারি যে because if a circle without a radius is not a circle, so a circle must have a radius. So we can define a constructor that takes the valid radius value and then creates the circle if the radius is valid. So আমরা দেখব কিভাবে এটাকে আমরা মডেল করতে পারি, but the point here is আমরা object creation এর সময় proper value আমরা নিতে পারি. So but it has another property, that is যদি কোডে ডেভেলপার যদি কনস্ট্রাক্টর ডিফাইন করে দেয় explicitly, then C# compiler moves away from the code in a way, which means that it doesn't create any other constructor for the developer, right? It means let's assume we have a constructor with one parameter. It means when we are trying to create that instance of the type, we have to provide the value of that প্যারামিটার, আদারওয়াইজ আমরা অবজেক্ট ক্রিয়েট করতে পারবো না, বিকজ অবজেক্ট ক্রিয়েশন এর জন্য আমাদের প্যারামিটার ছাড়া অবজেক্ট ক্রিয়েশনের জন্য আমাদের ডিফল্ট প্যারামিটারলেস কনস্ট্রাক্টর দরকার। যেহেতু আমরা একটা কনস্ট্রাক্টর আমরা ডিফাইন করে ফেলছি, সি শার্প কম্পাইলার আমাদের জন্য আদার কনস্ট্রাক্টর ডিফাইন করে দিবে না। আমরা প্রত্যেকটাই আমরা এক্সাম্পল আমরা এখন দেখব। Another important point is class can have multiple constructor. So যখন আমাদের মাল্টিপল কনস্ট্রাক্টর থাকে তখন আমরা এটাকে আমরা চেইনও করতে পারি। So let's go into that and see let's see how we can model that. So আমরা কার্গো বক্স এক্সাম টাইপটাকে না নিয়ে আমরা নতুন একটা টাইপ আমরা ইন্ট্রোডিউস করি। So let's say আমরা এটাকে ট্রান্সফর্মার বলছি। Okay, so আমরা constructor define করব। So similar to class, there is a code snippet defined in most of the editors, that is for constructors. So you need to write CTOR. CTOR is also short version of constructor. If someone says the CTOR, it means he or she is referring to the constructor. So see what it did. It defined as I've said, the public is not mandatory for a constructor for a method to have a valid constructor. We cannot have return type. So let's say we provide void here. Well, it doesn't compile. The reason it doesn't compile is it is confused. The compiler is getting confused. এই ডেফিনিশন দিয়ে সে একটা মেথড ক্রিয়েট করার ট্রাই করছে, বাট মেথডের নেম ক্লাস টাইপের নেমের সেম হতে পারবে না। অফকোর্স দিস ইজ ভ্যালিড, but যেহেতু টাইপ নেমে সেম হতে পারবে না, it's getting confused. It's not a constructor, not a method also. But if we remove the return type, it's perfectly valid. Also, we have parameters here. We can provide explicit arguments and parameters there. So for now, we'll keep it public. We'll discuss about what happens if we don't do it. So let's define another type, circle, and there is a constructor. So আমরা ওই সিচুয়েশনটাকে আমরা মডেল করতে পারি এখানে। So C# has a type called uint. Uint is unsigned int. So of course for a circle it doesn't make sense to have negative radius. Well, I think so. Mathematically I don't think it makes sense as far as I know. So আমরা এর জন্য এটাকে unsigned integer হিসেবে আমরা রিপ্রেজেন্ট করছি। So let's call it radius. So what is the impact? So let's see. আমরা যদি এখন ট্রান্সফর্মার ক্রিয়েট করতে চাই, we can do it. So you see the parenthesis, we also use it in cargo box, right? Actually this parenthesis invokes the constructor. If we press F12, see where it moves us to. It moves us to the constructor. So literally this is an invocation to the constructor. So but at the same time, let's put another one. But in this case we will not define the constructor. In this case also, similar to cargo box, we were able to use the parameterless constructor. The reason is, even though there is no constructor, it is provided by the C# compiler. If we look into the intermediate code, we will see there is a constructor there. Okay, now let's see the interesting case of circle. Now it's not valid. Why not? Because there is a constructor which takes an argument. Because there is a parameter. Because there is a constructor which takes a parameter, compiler didn't provide us with the default constructor, which is this, right? Because it's not there, any consumer that wants to create an instance of circle has to provide the value for radius. So if we provide this as the value, we're fine. Now here comes another part, which is having multiple constructors. So what if we provide this? So it means we can do what we have attempted to do previously. This is valid now, because যদিও বা কম্পাইলার আমাদেরকে ডিফল্ট প্যারামিটারলেস কনস্ট্রাক্টর প্রোভাইড করেনি, বাট আমরা সেটা এক্সপ্লিসিটলি প্রোভাইড করছি। যেহেতু আমরা এক্সপ্লিসিটলি প্রোভাইড করছি, we can create an instance of circle without providing the radius. So that's essentially it in terms of constructor mostly. So now see what happens if we don't provide the public access specifier. So let's define another type. Let's editor. Let's use the code snippet. Now we remove the public. First of all, when we remove the public, by default it is private. This is the same in C#, I think in everywhere. It's true for data members, it's true for constructors also. So if we do that, what it means is we cannot create the instance of create an instance of editor, because this, if we think this represents the constructor is private. Because it is private, we cannot invoke it from outside the type. Interestingly, you might think what is the importance of it then? It doesn't really do anything in that case, right? What's the point of having the constructor? Actually, this allows us to do a lot of interesting things in real projects. I will not go into the details, but I will just show you this. We will talk about static later, but for now bear with me and just think this is fine. So we have return. Interestingly, we can invoke the constructor here. Why? Because the method is defined inside editor. So this constructor is not visible outside the editor method, but it is visible inside the editor method, right? That's why we are able to create the invoke the constructor here. And this is a very useful pattern in some situations. As I've said, we are not going to discuss about it. I'm just showing it for sake of completeness. What we can do is we can do this. One second, don't bother about the static discussion. Just for now think that we are able to invoke the create, and in which we can invoke the constructor, because the method is inside the editor type. So yeah, that's I think it. And there's another thing we can discuss about is chaining of multiple constructor. So what can happen is sometimes, so let's think another example. Let's say we have a laptop, we have a constructor, we have another constructor. This constructor takes manufacturer name or some manufacturer, fine, but this laptop has a, we will explicitly use private string. We will say, I don't know why it's put string, but let's say RAM, whatever the value is. So now this it can happen that in a case RAM's value is 32. If we decide if our use case is such that the RAM's value will always be 32, of course, if you think about it, there's an exclusive behavior, exclusive execution flow in between these constructors, right? So আমরা যদি একটা ল্যাপটপ ক্রিয়েট করি using this constructor, it goes there. Let's say it's not there. If we use this one, it goes there. So আমাদের জন্য যদি এই সিচুয়েশনটা মেক সেন্স করে, তাহলে আমাদেরকে দুই জায়গায় ডুপ্লিকেট কোড লিখতে হবে, আমাদেরকে কপি পেস্ট করতে হবে। আমাদের যদি if we need to change the value of 32 to 38, let's assume, then it's error prone because developer has to make sure that it's changed here. So this is error prone. What we can do here is we can use we can put the common assignment in the parameterless constructor, and we can explicitly invoke the constructor. It will ensure that the value is defined properly. So that's why if you do this, sorry, for demonstration purpose I need to make it right. So আমরা যদি এটাকে আমরা এখানে শো করতে চাই, we should see the value 38. So this is a common approach in real application যেটা আমরা ইউজ করি, আমরা কনস্ট্রাক্টর চেইনিং করি এভাবে। Okay, so then I think we are done with the discussion regarding constructor chaining. Another important point is as a best practice to use the values that can change, put those values as best practice to put those values in the constructor rather than allowing the attributes to be changed later. So an example can be, let's create a copy of circle, copy circle. So let's put public typing is very bad today, so let's say we don't have that, we don't have that. Okay, so this is just an example. So if we create copy of circle, fine, copy of circle, okay. Now if we want, we can change this value, right? So this is what it does, is it changes the value of the attribute. Here the value is circle, it will be the default value, but here the value will be 89, right? So the reason আমাদের এটা করতে হচ্ছে, তার কারণ হচ্ছে আমরা একটা সার্কেল আছে, সেই সার্কেল রেডিয়াসটা আমরা সেট করতে চাই। So this is one approach of doing it. The problem is আমরা একটা প্রবলেম হচ্ছে কনসেপচুয়াল, সেটা হচ্ছে সার্কেল ক্রিয়েট করা। আমরা এসেনশিয়ালি আমরা যদি এই কোডটাকে চিন্তা করি যে এই কোডটা হয়তো বা লিখবে না কেউ, তাহলে এসেনশিয়ালি আমরা বলতে পারি একটা invalid circle আমাদের আছে, because circle has to have a radius. That's number one. Number two is আমরা কন্ট্রোল করতে পারবো না এটার ভ্যালু। ফর এক্সাম্পল, what about this value? This is well, because আমরা এটাকে unsigned করেছি access value, so let's say আমরা এটাকে integer, because I'm trying to make the point, that's it. So আমি ওটাকে unsigned, আমি এটাকে integer, so this is a valid value, right? But the problem is that this is not valid. Radius আমরা assume করে আমরা বলতে পারি যে it cannot be negative, so we don't have any check, right? So there's another place যেখানে constructor is very handy. Constructor আমরা এখানে যেটা করতে পারি, আমরা ডাটা অ্যাট্রিবিউটের ডিসকাশন থেকে যেটা আমরা বলেছি যে আমরা অ্যাট্রিবিউটগুলোকে সবসময় আমরা নন এক্সপোজড রাখবো। সো আমরা এটাকে লেটস মেক ইট প্রাইভেট radius, and we can do radius. Now what will happen is, of course, এই কোডটা কম্পাইল করবে না, because we do not have this. So আমরা যেটা করতে পারি for now, so compile time errorটা আমাদের সরানোর জন্য আমাদের দিতে হবে। Good, but the obvious problem is the previous problem still exists. আমরা এখন যেটা করতে পারবো সেটা হচ্ছে আমরা এখানে একটা কন্ডিশন দিতে পারবো, radius is less than 0. So আমরা will set if it's less only greater than 0, right? So what will ensure is what will be ensured here is আমরা কিছু কনস্ট্রেইন্ট ইউজ করে আমরা অবজেক্টের ক্রিয়েশনটাকে আমরা ভ্যালিডেট করতে পারি। আমরা ভ্যালিড একটা অবজেক্ট আমরা সবসময় আমরা ক্রিয়েট করতে পারবো এই ওয়েতে। Don't need this one. Okay, so that's why in a sense constructor is very useful. Actually this is not the way we generally handle in production code, but আমরা সেই ডিসকাশনে হয়তো বা পরবর্তীতে আসতে পারি।